Hi everyone, welcome to today's Xcelerate Success event. I am Lucy Alban and I am one of our customer success managers for Sage People. This is the third Xcelerate Success event we've ever done now, so hopefully you're enjoying them. Today's topic is all going to be around AI and automation, so we have a great agenda in store for you. Before we get started, just want to run over a few housekeeping items. So if you're looking for computer or phone audio options, please download the handout in the chat section. So that's not the Q&A, it's the separate option for the chat. If you've got any issues, please do just let us know. There is also a mobile app for iOS and Android, and details for that are also in the handout. Today, we're going to have our agenda. So we're starting with the panelist discussion, which is going to be hosted by Michelle Hare, Head of Customer Success. And she's going to be joined by Claire and Diane, and they'll be introduced very shortly. After that session, we are going to run a Q&A session, and then we'll move on to a bit of a product overview. So how you can automate things within Sage People, and that'll be run by Chris. That will also be followed by Q&A, and then we're going to go on to the roadmap section. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Michelle for the panel discussion.
So welcome everybody to our third Xcelerate event. We're going to be focusing on AI and automation. I'm super excited. My name is Michelle Hare. I head up our Sage People customer success team. Some of you on the call may have seen me before in other webinars, and I'll be hosting our webinar today. I'm delighted to welcome two of our panelists today. So we have the wonderful Claire Findell, our VP of People at Sage, and the lovely Diane Gay, our Director of Learning, Design and Experience. So welcome, Claire. Welcome, Diane. How are you both?
Thank you, Michelle. I'm very good.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Claire, would you like to start with a few words and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Findell. As Michelle said, I head up our people operations organisation, which effectively means people services, the kind of shared service area, digital services, so that's anything people, technology, and our payroll services, just ensuring that we make people get paid on time.
Wonderful. That's an important job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then Diane, a few words from yourself.
Thanks. It's really great to be here. Thank you so much. It's a passion of mine, AI, but a little bit about me is I am working at Sage in the L&D team, and what we do is we work on all the internal colleague learning to make sure that we're helping our colleagues upskill and be able to be ready for whatever Sage decides to go for. So we call ourselves, we bring our learning to life. So that's our tagline, and that's what we're very proud to do every day at Sage.
Oh, wonderful. I love that tagline. It's such a mantra for learning and development, isn't it? Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Claire and Diane, for being on our panel today. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited about AI. I think everyone's excited about AI in the workplace, at home. We're using AI a lot in our working lives now as well. So to make things more streamlined and a bit more fun as well. But I just wanted to get your thoughts really. So starting with Claire first. So what does AI mean to you, Claire?
Oh, great question. So a bit like Diane, I'm really passionate about this, really excited about it. I think for me, it's about a technology that can really shape and change the way we are at work, but also in our personal life. So I think that it's hard to kind of segregate the two. And so at a very sort of, I guess, operational level, it's how do we take the mundane, the routine out of our day jobs? So kind of really automating those everyday, really boring jobs that everybody has to do, but we'd like to do less of. And then I think if you sort of look on the other spectrum, it's a bit of a mindset change. So there's a lot of people who say to me, oh, you just administer, but actually we bring a lot of innovation around what we do. So how do we bring that innovation to life, and how do we make it part of everything that we do every day? So kind of two broad spectrums there in terms of quite routine, taking the boring bit out, but how do we make it a little bit interesting and bring the innovation in as well?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Diane, would you have anything else?
I agree with that. I think it's really going to be changing how we work, and as Claire mentioned, our personal lives, really making it more efficient for the things that we have to do, and being able to give us more valuable time, for our wellness, for our families, but also to be able to innovate at work. A lot of times people say that they don't have time because they're bogged down with the day-to-day. Well, this gives us the extra time that they can, divert to something else that might be able to be the next big thing in innovation, or the next big idea. So I think that's really what's exciting and cool.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And even for like meetings and capturing, meeting notes and, coming up with actions. I mean, it's just speeding up the way we work and being effective. Now, the next question is around how to ensure AI is used in an ethical way. And I'm going to ask this question. I'm advisory board member at a university, and the lecturers have a lot of problems with the students using AI to write their dissertations. So there's that ethical element to it. So Diane, I'll start with you first. How do we ensure we use it in an ethical way?
I think for every day, everybody, whether depending on what role they might have or what they do, is if something doesn't feel right, we're humans, we can kind of, our gut will tell us that. Just kind of really look a little bit deeper into it. What I do is I ask my tool, my AI tool, I say, I'm not sure you're correct. Can you give me some of the sources, or can you validate that for me? And that's what's great about the technology. It can go and look at what it can do and what it can't do. And it will come back and say, oh, I made a mistake. This actually is probably not a great source file, or here's the source file so you can look at them yourself. So I think it's really validating and understanding it is a tool. It's not going to be the end all be all, but it will, help us progress.
Yeah. No. And Claire, any thoughts from yourself about using AI in an ethical way? To ensure we do that?
Yeah, I love what Diane's saying. I think there is something about us as individuals and how we use the tools. So in a workplace, that's about, are you setting yourself up culturally for success around this? So are we curious? Are we kind of going on that continuous learning curve, and kind of maybe not just taking everything at face value that these tools can give us? As kind of the VP for people operations, I have to think about like how a kind of 100 people in my organization are going to ethically use this tool as we kind of serve our colleagues. So for me, I think it's about helping my team understand, making sure that we're always looking at it from that oversight perspective. Are we not letting it make the decisions on our behalf? So it can help us make decisions, it can give us those insights, but let's not use it in isolation. Let's make sure that we are and we remain the decision maker. So I think there's something around that. And for my team, it's about setting up our ways of working. So are we testing it? Are we auditing it? So that's why I loved what Diane said. So it won't always tell you the right answer. So I think it's about making sure that you are just testing those hallucinations that come out every now and again, where you like you said, Diane, that gut feeling where that just doesn't look right. I think there is something around transparency as well. So it's okay to call out when you use it. So, a couple of people in my team talk about this imposter syndrome and kind of like, should I disclose when I'm using it? So I think full transparency, that's what I always encourage in my organization. But you just can't expect people to wake up one morning and kind of know how to use this tool. So I know in conversations I've had with Diane in the past, it's, well, what's the education, the training that we're giving to our colleagues? And I think that's really important as well. You just can't push it out there and expect people to get on with it. I think you've got to put a bit of a support network around it as well.
Yeah, and it's really important. I think it enhances our human relationships as well, as we don't want to lose that human part of it. It's enhancing it, I suppose. That's making us be better. Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah. And with it AI, I don't know if you've introduced it into your teams already, but how have you gone about introducing AI into your work and into your team, Claire?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I love Sage's approach to this. It comes from the top. So there's real leadership around kind of how we're experimenting with it as an organization, but also how that's leaning into our customers as well, and kind of, you know, just the way that we're looking at Copilot and kind of working with our customers. So I think there's definitely a leadership aspect to this coming from the top. I guess sort of showcasing. So I'm really keen to say when I'm using it and kind of, you know, kind of calling that out in terms of, you know, be aware this has helped inform my decision making, but I did use AI to kind of give me the data to inform my thinking.
Yeah.
For my team, it's about talking about where do we use it and where don't we use it. So what are those used cases that we want to try it out on? And we're tending to use it a lot more where we've got, as you can imagine, in an organization like Sage, we have a huge amount of data at our fingertips. Think about all those payroll data and those kind of systems data that we have access to. So it's about where do we use it? What are the used cases? I think there is a little bit of, I see pockets of my team that are embracing it, and pockets of my team that are a little bit nervous, maybe kind of stepping back a little bit. So I think it's about helping understand where do we lean in a bit more to some teams, but where do we kind of role model where we're doing it really well and where our teams are embracing it. I've got one of my team looking actually at our framework, our strategy. So I think it has to have something around how AI and automation come together, and we're starting to look at how would we move that strategy, that framework going forward. And pilot it. You know, don't be frightened to start small and kind of just do a few things on the pilot and see how it works. Go out and be brave and do that experiment. But don't forget your lessons learned afterwards. Remember to evaluate. So did you monitor? Did you evaluate? What went well? And don't be frightened of failure. I think failure is as good as success as well. You learn a lot from the kind of, oh, that experiment didn't really work, but it can shape your thinking and just helps you innovate more. So hopefully that helps in terms of how to introduce it into a team.
Definitely. And you're so right. The way we've done it at Sage, it's almost like, here's Copilot, have a little bit of a play, and that's what we've done. You know, we've just had a bit of fun with it just to get used to the tools, and now there's that whole strategy behind it, you know, using it in different areas of the business. And I love your point around some team members are a bit wary, others are, you know, fully embracing that, and how do we reduce that gap?
Yeah, I love it when you're in a team meeting and someone will say, oh, let's switch on Copilot, they could do the minutes for us. And you don't think they're the snippets that you really, like, let's encourage that. So it doesn't have to be big. I think everyone thinks we've got to do this huge thing, but actually no, just kind of like, who's got Copilot, who's gonna do the minute taking using it.
I know.
So
it's amazing. It's amazing. And Diane, for yourself, how have you been supporting your team when bringing in AI? As it can be emotional, as Claire said, some people aren't embracing it. Some people are, or from like your learning experience, you know, how do we support teams with bringing in AI?
Yeah, so I think, you know, we've been really great at Sage at providing education, and there's more education coming, you know, more training to make sure that we know the full breadth of the tools and how to use them best. But for my team, I really started out with a competition experimentation kind of approach.
Love that.
Yeah. You know, we tied it to, you know, our objectives for the year, and we just made it fun. Part of our, you know, development was really, let's use some of these AI tools, or how these AI tools are embedded in some of our design tools, and let's see what happens. And we found a huge amount of efficiencies within a month. We just put it for 1 month to make sure that we had a beginning and an end, and we could calculate, you know, how our gains were. But we saved collectively like 67 hours in that 1 month. So, and that's a small team. So we were so excited about that we expanded that, you know, kind of thinking, how can we help the broader L&D team get, you know, adopting these a little faster. So I started doing what we call AI coaching, and now it's kind of taking off. Everybody is really taking hold on it, and I'm getting all kinds of raised hands on Talent Marketplace to be able to be part of it, which is exciting.
That's amazing.
Really, that coaching is really around looking at not, you know, how to use the tools. We've got that. It's more around how do you, as a human, adopt this into your ways of working to create new ways of working. And I think that's what's really exciting, and where we're seeing the differences of change, that people that, you know, some are really excited and they adopt, and some are a little hesitant. They have some nervousness, and they really have some, you know, maybe some fears. I call it, some of the folks are going through like the stages of loss, which is quite interesting. And I think we have to address that. I think from organization, we have to address it. And from, as me being a people manager, we have to really be open to think about, you know, how this is going to impact us. And it's great to have the tools, but how do we make sure that people are adopting it and embedding it?
Yeah, it's like an emotional cycle of change, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It is a big change, and you know, some people, you know, you start really high and you go down and you feel quite low about it, but then you come out the other end. So I think that's key, that we support our colleagues, our families through, you know, through the change in this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Claire, you mentioned this before about, you know, really thinking about what we should be using AI for. Obviously, you know, working within Sage People, all, you know, there's lots of data that we need to be very mindful of when it comes to AI. So I don't know if you can summarize what you think AI should be used for.
Oh gosh, I think this is a growing area. So I know whatever I say today is going to be out of date by the time that our customers watch this. So I guess it comes with a bit of a health warning that, you know, technology is moving at that pace of change, and even just keeping up with what you could use it for. I think for me, if I look at my areas, let's take people services or shared services, as some organisations might call it. So we get lots of routine queries. So what is it in that routine query that we could use AI for? Let me give you an example. It's not unusual for someone to approach us and say, I need a reference letter. The reference letter, I'm applying for some sort of mortgage, you know, buying a house, that sort of thing. I've got to give a reference letter to the bank that says, where do I work? How long have I worked here? What's my kind of annual salary? We could move that into AI. So we're just experimenting with that. How do you automate those types of tasks where you're putting factual information off a HCM to then generate a letter that could take us a couple of days to turn around, but AI can do in a matter of minutes. So definitely around those handling queries of those routine high volume questions.
Yeah.
I think if you also look in terms of the amount of data that we hold in people operations, it's probably a richness of data that those insights. So we work really closely. We have a sort of centre of expertise in Sage around data insights, kind of data analytics. What's our data telling us? All anonymous. You know, it's at a level that's not individual. It's kind of how do you aggregate the information up. you can imagine pulling all of that together. So I think there is something around that aggregation of mass amounts of data to provide those insights that our people leadership teams and our senior executives need to kind of move forward. Just around simple things around reward, kind of pay planning, that sort of thing. What does that data tell us? If I kind of stretch a little bit maybe into Diane's area, and I'll leave her to talk a bit more about this, but it's really starting to trend and take off in that L&D area. So how do you personalize your kind of systems to look at your skills and where your career wants to go, and then kind of how they tell you what gigs and jobs to go after, and then what training and what education, what support you need to do that. I think that's kind of an area that I think is really kind of exploding in this kind of AI space. Where I think it's really showing its value is in talent acquisition, that kind of recruitment, hiring space. So how do you match skills? How do you do the candidate screening? How do you, I think the brave thing that some organizations are stepping into is how do you get sentiment out of large amounts of data and really start looking at where are some of your practices working, and you're really turning up the dial on kind of, if we did more of this, would attract more people, and this is the way that we should kind of do that candidate attraction. So really tapping into those sentiments, I think, is an exciting area that we're exploring at the moment. That's just a touch. I mean, it's kind of growing every day. So I think even a year ago I'd have been probably talking about the TA space only, but it's expanding, which is really exciting.
So, and Diane, for the, as Claire mentioned, with, you know, it's exploding in learning.
That's great to hear that others are seeing that. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, us adopting it, being role models for it, as well as us embedding it into some of the things we are doing, right? So I know we're talking about folks, how do we incorporate AI into a facilitated session? And that's early days, but it's looking at, you know, those kind of opportunities. How can we use AI for our data analysis to be able, like you said, we're already using for sentiment to say, how are people engaged, disengaged within a session, or how are we able to, you know, assess when they have completed like an on-demand course. You know, what is the real true sentiment? We get the evaluations, but it doesn't tell us the full story. So how can we learn from that? It's all about continuous improvement. It's all about how do we use these tools to help us get better, right? And be more informed on what our learners want, how they want it, and how we should be providing our products and services in L&D to be able to help them be able to find the relevant learning they need to upskill. And that's really what we're here for to do. Some of the things we've been working on is using the Copilot Studio and creating of bots and looking at how we can better navigate on some of our platforms, because we have platforms that may not connect to each other, and how do we get people from one to the other and relevant information, and where AI can be represented, where are those opportunities and where do we need to have that navigation in place. So those are all experiments that we're working on, and we're very excited about it. Everything, you know, takes a little time to get kind of decipher what works and what doesn't, but I think the fact that we're moving and we're progressing is really exciting.
It's very bold. One of our SAGE values.
Yes.
It's going out there and being bold, isn't it? And doing that experimentation. And Claire, I loved it with when you said, you know, if it was 12 months ago, we'd just be talking about talent acquisition, because you think, you know, how the candidates are, you know, sentiment, you know, more research. But I'm loving that it's coming into the learning bit, and there's going to be much more, because we think of our employees' journey, the whole people cycle, you know, how AI is going to impact, you know, feedback, performance, ratings, all that type of stuff. It's amazing. Okay, so question for you both then, because this webinar is around AI and automation. So what's the difference between AI and automation? Diane, I was going to start with you, if that's okay.
Sure. So AI, and the difference between for me is automation just enables a process to be enabled by technology to either be done fully or be completed, in a more efficient way. AI is where it gives you insights to be able to act on something. So where you might have a process and you might automate it and say, okay, this part of the process, this technology is going to do, that's great. But it doesn't mean it has AI enabled it, because it's not having the data and the science behind it to input into how it's being done. So to me, that's the difference. A lot of times we'll have platforms and I'll work with vendors and providers that will say, we've got AI, where really they just have automation if you look under the hood. So it's really deciphering, what do you have available to you from your tools? What is your automation approach, and how you want to move forward with that, and where do you want to embed AI? I mean, there's really certain processes you may be more relevant than others to embed the AI versus just be okay with automation and create efficiencies that way. I do know that there is a basics to this. It's really, before we even look at that, it's to look at our processes and have we simplified them. So you can automate anything that's over complex, lots of waste process, but yeah, it's not going to give you the output you want unless you simplify that first. So I would recommend looking at your processes. What are you asking people to do? Make sure that's streamlined, and then look at the opportunities of automation and AI and how you apply those.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And Claire, anything else to add there?
Gosh, I think Diane covered most of it.
I think Diane nailed it.
I guess without getting too techie, because that's not what I am. I rely on my technical team to help with that. It really is about how you're looking at the scope of what you're wanting it to do, and then the capabilities of that piece of technology applied to that scope. That's about as technical as I'm going to get on that in that respect. I think for me, automation, and it really is, to Diane's point, with both of these, it's what's the value it's going to bring in terms of what I'm looking at. So for me, automation is high volume, repetitive. Could you follow a script on it? Are there rules? Is there a need to actually, could it remove that kind of human intervention? That's automation, I think. So if you've got things, standard operating procedures, scripts that your teams follow, and they do that in high volume in a very repetitive way, perfect opportunity for automation. If you're wanting to sort of take it to the next step, where you're wanting to kind of look at it from a kind of complex problem or kind of an insight perspective, I think you're moving much more into the AI space. You're using slightly different capabilities of the technology to help you give some insight, solve some problems, ultimately look at, could you make that experience a little bit more user-friendly, more colleague experience-based, as opposed to just looking at running that process in the same way and repeating that over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, so in Sage People world, so a lot of our customers on the call today will be using Sage People. So for me, in my simplest terms, action events. So you have a new starter and it triggers off automation, like a letter to say welcome to Sage based on a date. That's automation. But then the AI part of that would be that rich data analytics, so, or even like predictive, looking into the future or based on certain factors to see what the headcount would be, etc. That's the more of the AI intelligence coming in. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for explaining the difference so well. So Claire, we've touched upon how AI can be used in HR and recruitment. Did you want to add anything to that at all? Like anything that anything exciting you're working on?
Our sort of people function, as we call it. I think there's two areas that we're experimenting with. I think one is around well-being. So that really is touching in the sort of the kind of patterns and the kind of sentiment. So is there a pattern and a sentiment we can put together that might say these are the reasons why people might be experiencing more burnout at work or more stress at work because of these patterns that we're seeing, and then what your colleagues are kind of telling you in that well-being space. I think that's going to be a really powerful area to really start to look at that work-life balance. You know, technology bleeds into work, and kind of the technology at work bleeds into your life, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate between the two and kind of take that natural break. So I think well-being's a key one for me. And then more in terms of for sort of senior executives that are the kind of decision making is around that workforce planning. So what is the data telling us about our workforce, and where's the predictions going about where we go tomorrow and kind of into the future? So I think for me, those are two areas that are kind of really coming onto the landscape and kind of being explored. So I think that's a kind of watch this space and see where we go with it.
It sounds so exciting, especially around well-being. I never really thought about that before, but that's so important to be able to use that technology for that.
Definitely. I think we just got to be a little bit careful at the moment around the hallucination. So to Diane's point before, it's like, where are you getting that source from? Let's just test the answer that we're getting back. So
yeah.
As I said, not all experiments will work. So I think that's still early stages for organisations and companies, but I think it's that if you invite us back in 12 months, there'll be so much more, and that'll be so much. That'll be kind of like old news. Who knew that it could be old news? But
brilliant. Well, we might have to do that and have a recap.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Diane, so if a company's thinking about AI, I think we're all thinking about AI actually. So how would a company go about introducing AI into their everyday?
That's a good question. I think we have to I think from a leadership perspective, obviously, set the groundwork of what's important for them. What is the strategic bet on this, and how we are expected to progress with using AI and adopting AI. I think the other thing is that really get your managers adopting it themselves and role modeling it. I think that is key, because most we found data supports us that most colleagues really take their direction from their manager, and they take the actions from the role model of their manager. So getting the manager to really be comfortable with it, comfortable with the change, and actually encouraging within the teams use of it, being okay to fail, being okay to try new things, and not everything's going to work. It's okay, but we tried, we learned, and we apply. So I think that to me is the most, the best way to do it. Obviously, if you have a learning and development team, or you have some sort of talent team that can focus on these things, that's really important for them to provide education. So there is the information on how to use the tool and best ways, but I think it's really around the manager really being that representative of what we can do, and making sure that we have the colleagues have the free space to do that.
Lovely. No, thank you. And just following on from that, any hints and tips on how they could prepare for AI? You've spoken about, experimenting, starting small and big. Anything else you'd?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as, just identifying a tool or a group of tools that you want to use, and what I've done is just ask your team. Your team's smarter than you, so ask your team what they think. How can we use AI? What are these things that we might want to experiment with, and then make the space to do that. And I think that any manager can do that. Just have a conversation, say it's okay. we're going to see what happens. And you know, what I did with my team is I allowed them any efficiency gains in time. I allowed them to decide how they want to use that time and utilize it. Some of them used it for wellness, some of it used it for learning, some of them used it to just be more efficient and be more organized. And I'm like, great, you decide, you're empowered, you gain those time back, so figure out how you want to apply it. And a lot of times you'll find that they'll use it for, you know, being more creative, being more innovative, which actually helps your team, you know, propel to the next, you know, level, which is awesome. So for me, it's just start. Just start.
Yeah.
It's okay. Don't worry about if you're right or wrong. You do it. Just bring up the subject.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Claire, did you have anything to add there at all about introducing AI to every day and helping companies, you know, prepare for that?
I think Diane makes a great point that it's take the first step. I think that's the hardest one is taking that first step. So I think try and be a little bit bold as well in terms of what I loved about Sage was they started and they started by the early adopters. So they asked people to volunteer. Who wants to give this a go? What are the pilots? And encourage that to happen within their own sphere of influence. So what is it that's in your control that you think this could make a difference, and go off and experiment. So I think for me, those were great messages from the top, but actually giving people the space and it making it meaningful for them. So like Diane said, she said to her team, go off, do the experiments, and then when you've got the time, think about how you want to use it yourself. I think that's a great start. Through conversations with Diane, I think we met a short while ago, and I was saying what I loved her approach to the coaching. You know, there are people who they feel a little bit unsure there, and so just creating those safe spaces to actually talk about what's going well, but also maybe what your fears are as well, and kind of how you kind of overcome those and move those forward. So definitely find those people like Diane who offer that support network. I think I would definitely advocate that as well. And I think for me, it's there's a few things you can do before even starting. So if you're going to use it for data insights, have you done a bit of cleanse on your data first? Are you comfortable with what? Because you know AI will only turn back what it's looking at in terms, and if that data isn't where you need it to be, then you won't get the results that you need. So I think for me, think about data. Is there a little bit of cleansing, tidying up that you need to do there? And then maybe working with your IT colleagues and setting up the right environments for those pilots and those kind of experiments. So just some quick wins there in terms of preparation.
Yeah, because it's so key with data. If the data is not correct, AI is not going to make anything better, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah, no. I love that. And when it was around for coaching, Diane, with your AI coaching, in my team, I actually have an AI champion. So people can go to him because he's super excited. You know, he's using Copilot everywhere, but so that the team can go to him. And I've asked him to be a champion of as Sage are evolving through it, so he can keep our team up to date with the new technology. So we're super excited in our team, Diane, about AI.
I'm excited for you. And I think the building, what's key is, you know, I'm one person. Obviously, we have a lot of people raising their hand and interested in this AI coaching. So I've actually brought in other folks that I've actually helped with coaching, and they're turning in to be coaches. So I think it's really helping learn something, share something is really what I'm thinking, and how we can really get across Sage is really helping each other. And it doesn't have to be one person, but you build off of starting with one, and you know, and others will be able to champion that, be able to help others, and be able to get everybody in the same place. So
yeah, no, definitely. Okay, we're down to our final question. We're having fun. We've had fun. Okay, but this one is going to flip the coin. So it's and I'm going to just say it aloud. So what else could companies be doing to help with efficiency and regular tasks where AI may not be best placed? Claire, do you want to have a go first?
I think Diane's touched on this. So there's a lot you can do around your process optimization, the standardization to your processes before you even start thinking about AI and where you want to go with that. So in Sage, the people functions we're moving to a global model. So that's bringing lots of our local ways of working, our regional ways of working, and looking at, well, how do we turn that into a global standard, consistent way? And we started by just analysing those jobs to be done, those kind of tasks that we take, the process flow itself, and looking at the best practice in each of the regions, and then saying, what do we want our global way of working to be? So I think definitely that sort of process optimization, standardization. I think there is something around just the way that you encourage your teamwork and your collaboration. So what are the other two? I think it taught us a lot about doing these sorts of things, doing that virtual reach out, connecting with people, working with a team in a different way and collaborating in a different way. So you can do all of that without AI. So thinking about how you use your collaboration tools. And then I think there's just something about the human element. So I loved what Diane said about what she did with her team. She gave them the autonomy to use that time to do whatever tasks they wanted to do, that empowering her team to use that time to the best of their ability. So don't forget about that empowerment and that autonomy of the day job for your colleagues. I think that's really important as well.
Diane.
I mean, exactly what Claire said is exactly what I was going to say. It's really around, it doesn't have, we don't have to wait for someone to tell us that there's a bad process. Be bold, be verbal, and if you have the power to change it, change it. If we don't need a process or there's a technology that's impeding our process, raise that up. Be bold, say something. If you have the power to change it, make those changes, because the biggest impediment for colleagues to be able to get their work done is not training. It is around processes and technology in most cases. So if we can clean that up and we can make it more streamlined to where we are only having the process actions that we absolutely need in a simplified way, our colleagues will work faster, they'll be more productive and be more efficient and happier. And then they can have more time to focus on learning, of course.
Of course. Thank you so much. So that we've come to the end of our panel. Claire, Diane, thank you so much for being part of our Xcelerate event today. I hope you both had fun. I have. Absolutely. And I've learned fantastic. And I've personally learned so much about AI and automation. We're going to pause for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go over to some questions and answers from our customers on the call.
Thanks for having us, Michelle. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you for that panel discussion. It's super interesting. Obviously, AI is the hot topic at the moment. I think the piece on ethical AI really jumped out to me personally. I think we've got different things going on across the globe. So obviously in the EU, we've got the AI Act now that's coming into place with the things that organisations need to consider, whether they're providing or deploying AI tools. So yeah, definitely a lot of food for thought there. So now we're gonna ask Claire and Diane some questions that we've received into the chat. So can I just check, Claire and Diane, are you there?
I am here.
Hi
everyone.
Amazing. Thank you both. Thank you. So the first question we've had come into the chat is from Lisa. And Lisa has asked, what are the key things we should consider in a corporate AI policy? So I don't know which of you would like to answer that. Maybe both of you could offer your thoughts. So what are the key things we should consider in a corporate AI policy?
Claire, do you want to try that one first?
Yeah, no, sure. I'm happy to go first. I think off the top of my head, there are a couple of things that you probably need to weave in. There's definitely, I guess, a response around the legality. So depending on your organization, the regions, the territories that you operate in, just that kind of approach to how it fits in with the regulations and the statute within those regions. Second would be around, I guess, being really clear about what tools to use, what tools not to use. So there's a lot of free platforms out there. Are you encouraging colleagues to use those, or are you specifically creating kind of, I guess, secure domains within those? And then just some approaches around the use of data. So when I think about kind of the journey that we've been on, we were really clear up front in Sage around how we treated customer data, kind of not putting those into those kind of open tools that are out there on the marketplace, being very generic about the ask. I think as we've kind of evolved our strategy, we've got much more clearer about that in terms of the do's and don'ts on data. So and then my fourth one would be that ethical consideration. So being really clear about how it informs decisions, but it's not a decision making tool in that respect. They would kind of be my sort of top four. Diane, I don't know if you would add anything extra.
I think it's freedom within a framework is probably best expressed. You don't want to impede innovation. You don't want to impede growth, but you also want to make sure that you are protecting, your assets, your people, your what you're all about, right? So I think it's mainly make sure that you're looking at it from what is the level of risk that you want to take, and how can you provide your team to be able to utilize it in ways, but within a framework that mitigates some of those risks, to make sure that you're comfortable with the level of risk that you're taking.
Perfect. Some super useful advice there. And I think you've even got things like the AI Act and the fact that it prohibits AI from inferring emotions of a natural person in the workplace. So it's things like that as well that need to be considered. And obviously the AI Act I'm referring to is EU based, but I believe it's if you're operating within the EU, you need to adhere to that as well. So yeah, lots of food for thought, but some really, really good tips. Thank you both. So the next question is from Chris, which I think is probably more aimed at you, Diane, but feel free, Claire, to chip in, is could Sage perhaps share some of the framework for the AI coaching we are doing, as we think a lot of people could benefit from some direction here?
Yeah, so it started as an experiment. So it was a little, let's just try this out and see what sticks. But we're actually documenting a lot of it and making some thoughtful considerations of what do we want to keep, what do we want to do differently in the future. And I think some of that information, we'll document at some point, and that might be something we can share out as a template. Who knows? But I think right now we are just capturing what works and what isn't, and how we can progress this and see if it's something we want to adopt full on, or just encourage peer-to-peer learning in the future.
Perfect, amazing. Thank you, Diane. The next question we had is, do you have any future plans for AI use in your team? So how do you see that evolving based on what you're already doing, I guess?
I mean, I'm happy to take that one first, Claire, if you're okay with it.
Yes,
Right now, we're looking at how we can utilize the Microsoft Copilot companion, which is basically chatbots, and how we can provide better enablement of navigation to be able to get to the right content in the right, the right content to the right people in the right kind of 3 clicks or less, we call it. And I think what we're trying to discover right now is where we can have the chatbot and you have known, logic that you incorporate into that, but how do we want to insert at certain points true AI, and what are the opportunities of where we can do that from a learning perspective? How do we bring learning to life in our team? So those are the things we're considering now. There's a few, things we have to get through, but what's an experiment without having some, opportunities to, and challenges to kind of figure out. So those are the things that we're doing right now, is how do we incorporate it into what we do, and how do we offer it to our SAGE colleagues, from a learning perspective.
Okay, so if I build on that, yeah, sure, I'll build on that. So similar to our learning and development colleagues, we're looking at it very much from a knowledge base. So how do we, as we move to a more global reach in our people services organisation, how do we make sure that where people can have access to information, that means that they don't need one of my team to respond to that they've got access to that, and AI is bringing back relevant information. So we're very much badging that our knowledge management strategy, so kind of really helping our colleagues do that direct access to relevant information. And then also we're looking at how do we expand our services? So currently our colleagues in Sage use a platform called ServiceNow and engage with us through a front door that is through a sort of case management tool. So how can we speed up our responses using AI to those more simple queries? How can we make sure that when people are asking us questions, where AI can give a response back, that we can do that 24/7, as opposed to just the core hours that we are looking at? So we're looking at being a little bit more agile, a little bit more responsive in those everyday queries that actually are repeatable solutions back out to our colleagues.
Yeah, some really useful use cases. Thank you. It's it kind of actually relates to the next question. So the next question is about, when you started to embrace AI tools, how did you define what areas would benefit you? And it sounds like, from what you've spoken about, Claire, with the next steps, it's looking at the case management, the day-to-day stuff, those tasks that are quite black and white. Diane, it sounds like you've taken a bit more of an approach where you've asked your team, let them kind of play and experiment with AI. So do you have any kind of, I guess, additional tips from what you've already discussed on how to define which areas will be the most beneficial?
So we utilised AI to help us. So roughly in a 6-month period, my team will deal with about 20,000 tickets. And we've identified that about 4,000 of those could have been responded either through using AI in the knowledge management space, or AI to respond to a ticket. So we've kind of been quite data-led in our kind of analysis in terms of which areas to step into in that respect. So very much, and then we've used AI to help us analyze the data to kind of get to that conclusion. So I think being a little bit creative around helping it inform your decision making to kind of where do you go next.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And I think from my perspective, some of our experimentation where we captured with the team, where is our greatest, gains by using different AI tools. I think we discovered that translation was going to give us the most value of being able to utilize AI tools, for translation purposes. And while it might not replace that local reviewer, it definitely would reduce the amount of time that it takes for us to take a piece of content, have it translated either externally or internally, and be able to make it, available to our colleagues, that require a different language outside of English. So those are the things that we've really used and adopted it into our processes. So now it is part of what we do when we are taking a piece of content and when it requires translation needs.
Yeah.
The other alternative, the other alternative is to use your product roadmap as well. So it may be that actually you don't know where to start, but by taking a look at what so Sage People, whatever product that you're on, and kind of evaluating the roadmap, and then just experimenting with kind of what's coming down and what can help you in that space as well. So some of it you might use your product to help inform your thinking in that way as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, that's super helpful. Thank you. And then the last question for you, I guess, is, do you foresee much resistance to AI, or have you experienced that so far? I know, Diane, you spoke a bit about the emotional side of AI, but have you had any kind of pushback from colleagues, people within the business about the use of AI? I think kind of one thing that comes to my mind in the HR space is AI is used a lot for meeting notes, isn't it? And whereas previously you'd had a disciplinary or grievance, you've got someone in the room taking notes, but now obviously we've got Teams meetings, we've got transcripts, we've got AI kind of summaries of transcripts, and I can see in those sorts of situations it might feel a bit more sensitive to maybe an employee that's going through a disciplinary or grievance to have that AI bot taking the notes.
Yeah, I think it's think about your situation, right? And where and we ask in any meeting, we ask, does anybody have any concerns with us adding in our co-pilot or our AI companion? And if anybody raises their hand and says, no, I'm not comfortable with it, we don't. Same with recording or transcripts or anything like that. We want to make sure everyone has a safe space, and that, while it's, definitely efficient and it is helpful there, but there's certain circumstances where, you want to protect privacy, and you want to make sure, even if, that data is managed by humans, and humans can make the decision on how it's going to be utilized. So I think it's just being considerate of others, and really thinking about your working with humans, and asking them how they feel about it.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane. Claire, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you will always find in your teams you do have people that are a little bit hesitant, and I think that really is about that balance of, I guess, the training that you offer, but also the kind of leadership that you demonstrate in this. So we're not consistent in my area. I think it is a bit of a journey that we're going on, but we've definitely got some early adopters, and we've got now, what I would say is, we've got people showcasing where it's working well, and I think it's being able to draw out those showcases and kind of share that with the wider team, and encourage the usage of it. But I wouldn't say we've got 100% take up. I think we're a little bit way off that yet.
Amazing. That's some super insightful answers, as well as the panel discussion as well. So that is it for the panel discussion element of this webinar. So thank you so much, Claire and Diane, for joining us today. And if we get any other follow-up questions, I'll be sure to send them your way, if that's okay.
Perfect, and thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you. So with that now, we're going to move on to the next segment of the webinar. So we're going to first of all move on to a functionality session where Chris is going to talk to you about some use cases for automation within Sage People. And then following that, we're going to move on to the roadmap session with Alex. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Chris.
Lovely. Thanks, Lucy. I think it really was great to hear how Sage are getting to grips with the use of AI internally, especially how we're also now starting to see the benefit with all these hours saved within our people function. And I think, one of the bits that stood out for me was, loving that we've created this pot of saved hours and that we've given the team the choice back on what they want to do with that time in terms of what they feel is better use for that time and what adds more value to that person. So I think that's super valuable. Thanks for the insight there. I think when we also then start to drill down on some of the benefits that AI has to offer, including being able to save time on day-to-day tasks, allowing us to have a much greater focus on a better work-life balance, speeding up some of those tasks that are just a bit mundane, repetitive, and take up a lot of time, then we can access a lot of these same benefits by utilising more automation within Sage People. It's also something that Claire mentioned that Sage benefit from internally. So throughout these sessions, throughout these next few slides, I just wanted to explore some kind of key areas where automation can help us kind of increase those efficiencies in several different areas really within Sage People. And this makes it well worth considering whilst we get to grip with AI, and we'll learn more about some of the more embedded AI tools that are coming to Sage People itself as part of the roadmap session. These are just some key themes that will help inspire you to really get more creative within Sage People. And also we will help enable you through various function focuses next year, expanding out some of the Sage University collateral. We'll pull together some resources from our community and our help centre. Just when you're going through these, we will add a bit of a map as to how we can help you achieve this. So if we can move on to the next slide, please, Millie. What we've done is we've broken this down into a few different areas where we can call out some of the things that really we can think that other customers have benefited from or are currently using, and also some of the best practice. So a customer might have said, oh, actually, I'm using this, or I want to achieve this, and we've helped them workshop that in a kind of technical solutioning capacity and been able to get there. So let's explore a couple of these key themes. One of them is onboarding. That the whole process around onboarding is a great opportunity for us to look to use some of the automation. So when we talk about automations, there's lots of different ways the system can automate a task. We'll have a look at things like action events and sending notifications, updating records, updating fields. And then the other main area, which is super powerful, is flows, because flows is a near on limitless tool to help us automate anything where there isn't currently a process to do that. So for example, there's no suitable action event trigger, we can go and create one. So one of the use cases that we've got here initially is about assigning permission sets to new starters. So when a new starter starts, someone won't then have to go and assign the performance management permission set, the permission set to use the mobile app, or the Teams integration, for example. We could use a flow to then start assigning these automatically and then free up some time when we're going through that kind of onboarding checklist, making sure that we've achieved those various different tasks, because that's unlikely to change for every person that we onboard. There's also another example here of a customer who adds objective records for new starters to focus on a set 30, 60, 90-day goal. So really, when we're going through these, just start thinking about, is there something that I do on a regular basis? Is there a task that I complete and I have to keep completing every time someone starts? Really, if you start thinking about the tasks that you're doing within Sage People and also outside of Sage People, is there the opportunity for automation if there's any repetition whatsoever? So one of the examples we've got here, and I think this is actually on the community with a video that I recorded to step you through setting that up, is actually a flow to help you check if you're low on licenses. So whenever you go and activate a new user, the automation will go back and check, have you got enough licenses within the tolerance level that you've specified when you've set up the flow? If it hasn't, then it will send you an email and say, just to let you know, you've actually got 10 licenses left. So it's probably time to think about ordering some more. Also, when it comes to the performance management, the performance review process, making sure that managers reveal and sign their reviews automatically after they're approved. So if there are some steps that managers just find repetitive and don't add much value, what and how could we use automation flows to help reduce some of those steps down? So, perhaps automatically adding the reveal date or the sign date within the system itself. So just because the system or Sage People doesn't necessarily have something you can go and click to turn something on to get it to complete a task, let's not let that limit our thinking on what's possible, because ultimately, due to the level of configurability that we can have within Sage People, really, if we've got an idea as to how to do something, we can probably achieve it. So bit of blue sky thinking as we go through this. Next slide, please, Millie. One of the other areas we just wanted to consider throughout this section when it comes to kind of automation, making things easier, improving process, gaining greater efficiencies is when it comes to comp planning. It's a task that comes around once a year. We go through that same pain every year. A lot of the customers that we work with are moving from Excel spreadsheet based tools. Obviously, as we know within Excel, yes, Excel can be our best friend, but it can also be our worst nightmare. There's very limited control around who's done what. People can make changes to the sheets, they get out of line, formulas get corrupted. There's lots of things that can happen that make that a less than positive experience for the managers involved during that planning process. So with our comp planning tool, it allows managers to submit their options and their choices around salary and bonus planning. The system will suggest which percentages or amounts should be applied based on various different factors like performance rating. We get to then control the planning window. So we say that it's open from this time to that time. New salaries will be effective from this date. New bonuses will be effective from this date. And then we can also go through that kind of documented approvals for the suggested increases. So the whole thing's wrapped up together. Also, where you can start to use the comp planning tool is once everything's approved and we hit the relevant dates, we can then start to generate the new salary records, either being kind of future dated or past dated, generate those salary letters and send those out via email. That can be done automatically. And then we can look to kind of publish those letters and compensation statements to WX using that kind of employee documents manager notes within WX, so that we're not having to then kind of distribute stuff out to managers. Managers are sending stuff around to email and the email's getting passed on to that particular team member. So there's also several different areas within the comp planning tool that can really help streamline it from giving you greater control compared to a spreadsheet, but also be able to see some greater automation at the other end in terms of getting those new salary records finalized, getting letters out, and then start to push stuff out to employees in a kind of cleaner, more tidier way. Next slide, please, Vinny. The next bit is just really kind of general topic. These don't necessarily fit into a particular theme, or category, but I think they're really important bits of automation that we know our customers use, value, cherish, and have been able to save considerable amounts of time on implementing. So when we think about action events, obviously action events, there is a list of triggers, such as kind of new salary, new absence, performance reviews been signed, an absence needs approving. There is a great list of triggers, but there are always going to be tasks and things that you think, actually, I would really like to be able to send an action event when this happens. And for anything that falls outside of the standard action event triggers, we can utilize custom action events. So these custom action events are triggered via a flow. And in that flow, you simply just tell it what the trigger is. So that might be, for example, things like probation. Another example covered in this list, where if the probation status, for example, is changed to probation passed, then we could get some automation to go and add the probation completed date. Some customers actually use a HCM form to go and complete. That can have the dates in around like when the form has been completed, and if the status is probation passed, or the result or the outcome is probation passed, then the system can actually take that form, write that into a database or into that employment record or team member record with the date that it was done, and then go and change the probation status to passed, and even change the employment status to kind of active employee if that's managed via kind of on probation. So a few different ways in which we can start to utilize the automations available within Sage People and avoid us really having to keep doing the same tasks over and over again. Another example, also kind of using forms, is return to work forms. So that could be a custom action event triggered when an absence record is entered for like maternity or sickness. That can then trigger the form and the action for the team member to complete that return to work form within WX without anyone having to physically go in and trigger off that particular form. Same way for exit interviews. So if an action in the system is to be something along the lines of, the employment end date is 7 days away, or the end date has been entered into the employment record, and the kind of category of leaver is voluntary, we could then have it automatically send out a notification to the employee saying, please, can you complete this exit interview? Again, without any involvement from anyone within the people team. Also, report subscriptions. So obviously this is used fairly far and wide by a lot of our customers. As a reminder, report subscriptions used to be limited at 7 subscriptions or subscribers. That has now been increased to 15. So if within your org you still see or hit the notification that the subscription limit of 7, let your customer success manager know, and we will raise a case with Salesforce to get that increased to the 15. So more a reminder. Obviously, people management workflow, another great way of us having more automation at our fingertips by really pushing some of the tasks that are fairly admin heavy from the admin team back down to the management team, and allow them to complete some really simple tasks that are neatly categorized by the type of request. So, for example, probation, levers, movers, changes to job role, promotions. We get some really great feedback about just how easy it is to use and how much simpler it then is for the admin team and the people team, who have far little involvement with actually creating that request, going through the step, going through the approvals, making the changes, because obviously when that request is approved and the effective date arrives, the system will automatically create the new salary record, update the job description, update a set of dates, or update the manager, really whatever the change is. The HCM forms there we mentioned, that is covered off with the kind of both the standard action events, the custom action events, and a couple of examples of those are, you know, the return to work forms and the exit interviews. From a survey perspective, so employee engagement surveys, they can also be triggered automatically on a set frequency, as can the performance reviews. So we often hear people say, you know, is there any way I can, you know, push out my performance reviews to all of my team members without having to use a list view or do them at, say, 200 a time for some of you that have a fair number of employees. And yes, well, the policy allows us to select a performance review template and also the frequency in which we would like our performance reviews to be released. And therefore the system would then automatically open those new performance reviews in line with those dates as well. So just worth considering. Next slide, please, Millie. Now, one of the bits that we wanted to look at is, you know, throughout this process, when we look at AI, it's often data driven, it's around analyzing, it's about analytics. The same with the automation, we're creating lots of data and we're creating data at such a huge, you know, level. The amount of data that we're collecting year on year is multiplied, you know, probably tenfold. But it's really important to make sure we're also doing something with that data. So just as a reminder, really, we wanted to just call out the dashboards within Sage People and have a couple of examples on what we could do with that. So, for example, we're talking about leaver forms being automatically pushed out to those, you know, team members. And instead of it just being something that gets done, sits on their record and doesn't really go anywhere else, there are lots of meaningful insights that can be gleaned through those and allow us to start, you know, making some changes or reporting that within the business, and just being more visible with the data. So as an example on the screen of a employee engagement survey, you know, the number of surveys completed, how many people were asked to join in, you know, we could start to then report back on some of the key metrics that we've captured within those surveys. So both, you know, leaver forms, surveys around onboarding experience, or, you know, general employee engagement. Let's start thinking about not only collecting the data but doing something with it and making sure we're able to share those valuable insights. There's such a huge amount of core data within Sage People, and let's make sure that we're kind of harnessing that. Another couple of examples there around people management workflow and HR requests. So things that we could start to capture and glean from a insights perspective is things like probation success rates, salary increases, the number of promotions, you know, all key core metrics. That's the last slide, is it, Minnie? Yeah. So hopefully what this session was really designed to do is to start to inspire us to start thinking about, you know, we are all creatures of habit. And it's very easy in a busy world where we're going through, we're doing something, we're doing a task, to think, oh, that'll just take me 5 minutes. I'm just going to go and update it. But if we start to look at that collectively over a large period of time, and then multiply that by a large number of employees, we might find that we're always, you know, making sure that we're not utilizing some of the tools we have available to save far more time. So let's just start thinking about some of the tasks we're doing more often, some of the jobs that we do on a regular basis. Can we automate them? Can we use a flow? Do we need to be considering custom action events? And when we start to utilize these bits and join the dots up, it's when we get into that accelerated area of efficiency where we're able to save even more time compared to doing things manually and keep doing things on a repetitive basis. So we will make sure that we share some guidance on some of the areas that we've covered. There are some training, for example, how to create custom action events using flows in Sage Uni. There is some collateral within the customer community and the help center, and we'll do our best to try and highlight some key core links when we send you the collateral out on the slides afterwards. But that's all from me. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. I haven't seen any questions come in as of yet, so please do send them through if you've got any. If we don't get to them in this session, then we can take them offline. But no, really, really helpful. Thank you, Chris. I love custom action events. I'm a bit of a nerd with them. Learned how to do them since joining Sage. And it does really just give you that so many more possibilities on things you can automate in the system, being able to generate an email from literally anything. I think we've still got so many auto reminders going out, and it might be reminders to managers, employees, but also you can send reminders to yourself as a HR team. So if you've got a field and someone's sick note is expiring, then getting that notification rather than having to block out your calendar to diarise that you need to go and speak to that employee. So yeah, some really great use cases. So as Chris mentioned, we will get some further guidance published, and we look out for function focused webinars next year because we're looking to cover some of this content then as well. So with that, we're now going to move on to the roadmap session. So I'm going to hand over to Alex.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sage People product roadmap for FY25 readout. I'm Alex Antunes, and I'm excited to walk you through the developments and enhancements we have planned for the upcoming year. Before we jump into the roadmap, though, please note that anything we discuss today is subject to change. Therefore, don't make any investment decisions based on the content of this roadmap readout. Roadmap overview. So, our roadmap for FY25 focuses on enhancing our product offerings and improving user experience. Key areas include various WX processes as part of Workforce Experience 2.0. Additionally, we are announcing Workforce Insights and Sage Copilot for HR. Each will go through an early adopter program before launching into general availability later this year, FY25, that is. Workforce Experience 2.0. As most of you would be aware, over the last few years, we have been on a long journey with WX 2.0. It's a major upgrade to our employee self-service portal. This transformation aims to provide a best-in-class, accessible user interface that increases employee engagement and productivity. Key features include mobile-first page designs for a more intuitive user experience and improved system performance to scale seamlessly with your business growth. We are proud to say WX 2.0 meets WCAG 2.0 AA standards, ensuring accessibility for all users. Voice of the customer. At Sage, we value our customers' feedback. Through our Voice of the Customer initiative, we dedicate 40% of our resources to delivering key enhancements based on feedback we collect from our customers' idea portal, colleagues' ideas portal, and direct input from customer services and customer success. This initiative helps us build trust, shape our roadmap together with you, and to deliver customer-centric solutions that meet your needs. Customer ideas. Since the start of 2023, we have directly addressed over 40 customer ideas, with many more improvements planned for FY25 and beyond. These enhancements will lead to smoother workflows, fewer workarounds, and significantly improved usability. Our goal is to ensure these improvements require minimal setup, allowing you to immediately benefit from them upon release. Here are a couple of Voice of the Customer's ideas potentially coming out in FY25. Adding a log of previously triggered action events to help confirm whether an action event has been triggered. Color customization for different absence reasons on WX absence calendar, and improved formatting options on our rich text editor throughout the solution. Workforce Insights. Workforce Insights is our new AI-powered analytics tool available on WX. It empowers managers at all levels to receive actionable insights about their teams, make data-driven decisions, uncover hidden risks, and anticipate future trends. This tool is designed to help you capitalize on emerging opportunities and ensure successful outcomes. Similar to Sage Copilot, Workforce Insights will also go through an early adopters program before launching into general availability later in the year. We have launched a beta version back in 24.1, and we appreciate the feedback from everyone who participated. We are aiming to carry on in FY25 with a number of improvements as part of the early adopter program and subsequent GA. In-app content. We're also introducing in-app content updates, communications, documentation directly through Sage People's HR portal. This ensures that HR users never miss important updates, receive timely communications, and can access contextual help while in the flow of work, empowering users to make the most of Sage People. This feature aims to keep users engaged, informed, and confident, ultimately increasing efficiency. Sage Copilot for HR and Payroll. After the successful launch of Sage Copilot for Finance and Accounting, we are excited to announce that Sage Copilot is coming to HR and Payroll as well. This digital assistant will help HR and managers on Sage People HR portal perform activities faster, automate repetitive workflows, and create more time to focus on your people. Sage Copilot will be available for early adopters and general availability within FY25. That's our aim. The release schedule. Here's a quick overview of our release schedule, very high level for FY25. In the first release of the year, we aim to roll out Workforce Insights and Sage Copilot for HR and Payroll through an early adopters program, along with WX 2.0 features such as employee documents, pay slips. And then in the second half, we will focus on general availability for the Workforce Insight and Copilot, and in addition, WX 2.0 features. Please remember that this schedule is subject to change, and for more detailed release calendar, please visit our customer community. Information will be posted there as it becomes available. That's it for me at this moment. Thank you for joining me today on our FY25 roadmap readout. We are excited about the future of the enhancements we are bringing to Sage People. We believe these updates will significantly improve your experience and help you achieve your HR and business goals. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask during our QA coming up, or reach out to your customer success manager after the webinar. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So we are pretty much out of time. So I'd say if you've got any questions related to product roadmap, if you could pop them in the chat now, we can then put them to our product team and then share the responses after this session. But with that, I'll just say thank you everyone so much for your time today and for joining. I know it was a bit of a longer session, but we had lots and lots of things to cover. Our next Xcelerate Success session will be in March. We've not pinned down a topic yet. We've got a few in mind, but look out for further details on what that will be. I'll also be sending out a survey after today's session where we'll get your feedback if there's any particular topics you'd like to see as well.